Thanks for celebrating my family and I. Thanks for taking the opportunity to celebrate. Anytime you have an anniversary, right, you can't help but kind of take a look backwards over the years that brought you towards your anniversary. And if you saw what I posted this week online, it's what kept echoing in my head as we kept approaching this day. It's special to be in full-time ministry for 20 years. I don't think that when I entered into full-time ministry, I never really thought how long God was, doing this or how long I would be a part of it. But you look back and 20 years seemed to, I'm only 25, so I don't know how it's been a full 20 years. But being here for the last 5 years has been really special. Because many of you, I look around and I see faces that knew the 18-year-old boy that was a part of the youth group here and the college group here that accepted a call to full-time ministry in this place. I never would have dreamed that God was writing a story that would one day bring me back to the place where I answered my call and allow me to have this be a part of that chapter. I don't know what chapters God has in store for the next few years. I'm blown away when I look backwards and think I could have never dreamed what God was doing when God was doing it to get me where I am. And that goes for every one of us wherever we are at in life. I think if you take a look back over the last 20, 30, 50 years of your life, if you just take that moment and a time with prayer to God, you will quickly see, I never had any idea what God was doing in my life that was preparing me for the time that I find myself in now. So if anything else, as this time, I'm excited, I'm thankful to be able to celebrate together. But I just thought, what if we all took that opportunity to look backwards and say, man, because I said yes to God, He's preparing me for things that I never had any idea that He was preparing me to do and be a part of. So thanks so much. Thanks for allowing me to do it. And really, that was a lot of courage on your part because a lot of you remember that 18-year-old boy. And he wasn't ready to be a pastor then. So, but we're glad to be here and glad to be a part. And thank you for the way you love my family. Hey, we're in this series, Habits. We've been talking about habits. We're going to wrap up this series, Habits, today, but it's been a great one. A lot of insight back and forth about what it is. I want to give you just a clue about where we're going next week and where we're going to walk through in the next couple weeks. We're going to start a series called God is Blank. God is blank. There are a number of words that you have probably used to describe God. There are a number of words that you have talked to others about what God is, but we're going to walk together through the book of Exodus, and we're going to look at what God Himself reveals about who He is. Some of the things that fill in this blank of who God is for us. Things like powerful and holy and devoted, what those descriptions mean to us and how they will shape our life and our view of who God is. So at any time that we take an opportunity, look, you need to invite people to come to church. If you're not inviting people to come to church, you're kind of missing the point, okay? But if anything, when we have a new series like this, it is just a new beginning and a new opportunity for you to invite somebody to come and to join you and be a part of this journey that you are on together. As I just said, for the ladies that have this event coming up, who is God asking you to invite to be a part of this? If it's a neighbor, a coworker, a family member, a friend, a teammate, somebody needs to come. So just tell them, hey, come, I'll pick you up, you can sit with me, and I'll buy you a cup of coffee, and then we'll provide the coffee. So just tell them to come and be a part of where we're at. But today we're going to finish up this series on habits, and like I said, it's been fun. The feedback that I'm getting from you has been great, the impact that it's had. It's been fun for you to share some of the habits that you have started, some of the habits that you have begun. If you were so bold as to admit this, has anybody made their bed all week long? Anybody? There's a lot of people who don't make their bed. That's great. Like we talked about that last week, starting these habits, starting little pieces, starting little dominoes of where we're at and where we're going. So through this series, we've said a few different things, and we're going to talk about those things and then move forward for what God wants us to talk about with our habits. We said a few times, and I believe this to be true, most of us have very similar goals or very similar habits that we want to have. They're not just specific so much to us individually. There's some broad things that we all would desire, we all would want. We all want to be in good health. We want to have good health and a good, healthy lifestyle. We want to have healthy relationships. No one likes to be in turmoil in their relationships with others. We all want to be financially stable. We don't enjoy or desire to live in a way that we're always chasing money at the end of the month and there's this uneasy feeling. We all would desire to be generous people, to be able to have enough, to be able to share and to do for others, like we talk about with the Dollar Club and everything else. But most importantly, as we come as a body of believers, all of us would desire a strong relationship with God. We would want that. We want that to be a part of who we are. And even though these are all things that we want, if we look over our lives, these are all things at some point we have struggled with. There's something that we have had some issues with, or they haven't always been healthy. In the same way, there are also a number of things that most of us agree we don't want in our lives, right? Like we don't say, like nobody says, I hope that I always live that paycheck to paycheck life. Nobody says, I would really like to pack on enough extra pounds that it will negatively affect my weight, my habits, my overall health. Like nobody says, I can't wait for high cholesterol and problems with my blood pressure. We didn't wake up saying that. We don't want those things. Nobody says, hopefully one day I become an addict. Nobody says, hopefully one day I am so addicted to something that it ruins my life, it steals my job, it ruins my marriage, and it takes away my relationship with my kids. Nobody says, I hope I can pile up regrets in my life so that the longer that I live, I look backwards and think of all the moments that I missed with God or opportunities that I missed out on. Nobody says that I hope for a life that is just without passion, without purpose, without understanding. And even though nobody wants those things, there are people and many of us in this place that have walked through or experienced some of those things in our lives. We also know this to be true. Most people don't ruin their life with just one bad choice. Typically, we talked about these dominoes. It's a series of small steps and small choices that lead us to a place where we look up one day and we say, how did I get here? How did it get to this point? How did it get so bad? Well, there's a man in Scripture, and his name is Samson, and you probably have heard the story of Samson. Again, maybe this is one of those stories that you talked about in kids' church about this mighty, strong Samson. Samson was a very strong man. In fact, he had this incredible strength where he once killed 1,000 men with just the jawbone of a donkey, right? Samson was Jason Bourne before there was Jason Bourne, all right? He was Rambo. He insert the action hero of your choice in your generation. This was Samson. He could defeat, he could overcome, he could do anything. But it wasn't just because he worked out a lot. God instilled this strength and gave him this strength to Samson because he had great potential for Samson. He had a purpose for Samson. He had this great strength because the opportunity that God was giving him was to deliver God's people through his strength. In Judges 16:1, we pick up this story about Samson. This is where it begins. 16:1, it says, one day, Samson went to Gaza, where he saw a prostitute. He went in to spend the night with her. End of sentence. One small sentence. One small action that changes the entire trajectory of Samson's life. Instead of fulfilling the purpose that God has for him, his life ends up in this tragic death. And most of us would look at that passage and they would say, hey, listen, it was one choice that did change everything. You just said one choice doesn't change everything, that it's usually a series of small choices, but in this one small choice that he makes, everything was ruined. I think everything was ruined in that choice, but I don't think that was the choice that led to the ruin. I think there were small choices along the way as we look through this passage that will allow us to see the path that Samson was taking was leading to the choice that ended up being the one that caused the tragedy in his life. It starts with this. Samson went to Gaza. All right, Samson went to Gaza. He left his hometown of Zorah to go to Gaza. Gaza is about 25 miles away. Let me just throw this out there. I'm just thinking this through. Don't you think there were prostitutes in Zorah too? Why did he go 25 miles to go and visit the prostitute? I'm sure that there were opportunities for what he was seeking after right where he was. But he didn't want anybody else that knew him to know what he was doing. He wanted to hide because he knew within himself that the choice that he was making was not a choice that was honoring God. He knew full well that what he was doing was a choice that would separate or cause division from God. So he walks 25 miles somewhere else to go and make this choice. Not only that, Gaza was the headquarters for the Philistine army. It was home to the people that wanted to kill him, the very people that were trying day after day to destroy who he was. So Samson was willing to walk 25 miles into enemy territory just to fulfill these selfish desires and to make this choice. Who would do that? Who would do that? People do that every day. Every single day. Today, we're doing that. There are people that make a choice every day to avoid the people that love them the most and to willingly go out of their way to hide, to chase whatever selfish habit that eventually will become the death of them. That's what Samson did. He tried to hide, he tried to go away, he tried to find himself. Now, there was no Uber, there was no Lyft for Samson, all right? So 25 miles was not just a quick jaunt to the next town over. He had to walk for 25 miles. It averages out to be about 10 to 12 hours of walking in this direction to make this choice. Away from people that knew him, away from people that loved him, for 10 to 12 hours with each step after step after step in this direction that was against God's desires. He chooses with each step to go in that direction that would lead to this life that is out of control and lead to a life that is ultimately tragic death. Most of us don't wreck our lives at once. Most of us don't wake up one day and say, I want to throw it all away. I want to destroy everything that I've built. But one small choice, one bad habit, one step in the wrong direction, day after day after day, lead us to a place that can ultimately lead in a devastating death. Our habits are not so much about what we do, they're about who we are. We've said that for the last 3 weeks. You can't just look at individual habits and say, I need to start this one, stop this one, that will change everything. They will be a part of what you want to do, but it's not about what you want to do, it's who do you want to be? Who do you want to be known for? Do you want to be a godly parent, a godly spouse, an example to teammates and classmates and coworkers, a person that's healthy, a person that's generous, a person that's caring? Who do you want to be? But maybe the bigger question that we need to start with is, who does God want you to be? See, we live in a very selfish society that is all about who do you want to be? What do you want? What do you need in life? But as a people of God, we already said this morning, there is nothing greater, there is no more important step than serving God. So the question through this series and as we go through this year should be continually asking God, who do you want me to be? What habits, what choices, what steps do I need to make that will allow me to be who God wants me to be? What small habit can you start that will begin to shape that who that you want to become? What domino, what choice that will happen day after day after day? The question I have for us today is this, though. Based on all of these things, based on who you want to become, what is one habit that you need to break? We talked last week about one habit that you need to pick up, one habit that you need to start. But is there a habit that you have been holding on to that you need to break? Do you have something in your life that is unhealthy, that is unhelpful, maybe even ungodly? What habit is it that's taking you down this path in a wrong direction that you're continuing to take a step after step after step? In James 1:21, it says it this way. It says, therefore, get rid of all moral filth and the evil that is so prevalent, and humbly accept the word planted in you which can save you. It doesn't get much clearer than that. He says, cut out all the filth in your life. Cut out all the junk that is distracting you. James says, get rid of it. Throw it away. Throw away all the bad habits. So very similar to last week, we've got to start with one habit. You're probably saying right now, I got a whole bunch. I'm not going to tell anybody what they are, but I got a whole bunch of habits that probably would help me if I would begin to eliminate those things. Maybe it's anger. Maybe anger is your habit. Maybe anger is your go-to emotion, whether it's at work or it's at home or it's in the car on the way to work because that person on 24 can't drive. What if anger is that thing that you go to? Maybe it's a need to gossip that is your habit. Oh, but I'm not gossiping. It's a prayer request. I'm just sharing that with somebody next to me about what I heard and what is going on. No, it's gossip. Maybe acknowledging that that is your habit. Maybe it's an eating issue. Maybe you eat too much or you don't eat enough or you eat the wrong stuff. Maybe it's a technology addiction. Maybe you spend too much time focused on your phone. Yeah, but I got to check my email, man. It's part of work. It's who I am. I got to stay plugged in. I got to be a part. I got to know what the news said, Pastor. I don't get to check the news. I don't watch TV, so I got to scroll on my phone. I got to find out what the latest news is so I know what's happening. I need to know the score, so I got to get on my phone because I got to check that score because I got to know what impact that has to my favorite team. Maybe it's that idea that you're so addicted that you're constantly scrolling your social media feed. But if I don't check Facebook, how am I going to know whose birthday it is? I got to go check Instagram because I posted that photo like an hour ago and I need to see how many likes I got. I can't leave them open on Snapchat because they will think I'm disrespecting them. I got to scrolling on TikTok because I need to know what the newest dance is, but then I got caught up in it for 30 minutes, one swipe after another swipe after another swipe. Maybe it's lustful images that's your habit. Yeah, maybe it is pornography. Maybe that is the habit that you have done that has captivated you, that is one step after another pulling you away. But you know that lustful images can be far more than just pornography. It can be lustful sites or accounts that you follow on social media that trigger that little response in you that want you to look a little bit more. Maybe it's a substance that is your bad habit. Maybe it's nicotine or alcohol or sugar or illegal drugs or prescription drugs. Look, we live in a real world. Don't come in this place and tell me that these things aren't happening in the church. You're lying to yourself. We are human. And maybe that is your habit that you have hold on to. Maybe you're a workaholic. Maybe you literally cannot unplug long enough to care for yourself. You miss moments with your family because you just got to get the job done. You've just got to check another box. Maybe it's something else for you. Maybe the habit that Christ is revealing to you is something that I didn't even mention this morning. But it doesn't take us long to identify habits in our lives that we know without a doubt need to be broken. Once we identify that habit that needs to be broken in our life, we have to eliminate, we have to break the bad habit. So how do we break a bad habit? Well, can I tell you that first of all, it doesn't matter how strong you are, willpower is usually not enough to break a bad habit. If it was, you would have already broke it. A number of the habits that we find ourselves caught up in, we don't desire to keep doing them because we know that they are destroying us. But we continue to go to them. Willpower is not enough. Let's say your habit is donuts, okay? Let's just say, my bad habit is I love donuts. And so somebody, amen, that's fine. Hey man, that's good. You identified your habit this morning. Your habit is donuts and you say, I'm gonna be so strong that I'm never going to eat another donut again. And on the way to work, you pass the donut shop that you always stop at. And you say, "Get thee behind me, Satan. I said, I'm never going to eat another donut." And you make a great choice. And you pass on and you go to work. But then Bob brought donuts to the office. Bob. And you walk in and Bob goes, "I got donuts for everybody today. I stopped by the donut shop. I thought y'all could use a donut." And you go, "No, not today. I'm not going to eat a donut. I said I will not have a donut." And you watch as everybody around you has a donut and enjoys the donut. And they're like, "This donut's so good. Oh, these are the best donuts I've ever had." And you try to just make your way away. "No, I'm not going to do it." You get to working and then you pass by the table with donuts. And you just take a little whiff. Oh, sugary goodness. I remember back yesterday when I had donuts. But not today. I said, "Not today. I'm not going to have a donut." And you make another step and your willpower, you're like, "I'm so strong. I can do this. I'm not going to have a donut." And then a little while later, they didn't eat all the donuts. And it's been a few hours and it's approaching lunchtime now. And you think, "Okay, maybe I'll just have a half a donut because I'm going to skip lunch today. I'll just do a half a donut." So you go and you eat your half a donut and you're like, "That's it, just one half." I said just one half. But I ate a half a donut, and if I eat a half a donut, nobody else is going to eat the other half that I didn't eat. So I'll go ahead and finish the donut. And then one donut turns into 2 donuts, it turns into a dozen donuts, and before you know it, you're back on the donut train. Look, it sounds super silly, but insert your habit there. Insert your habit for donuts. I'm going to quit that habit. I'm going to stop that habit. And I'm so strong that I said no to this one. I'm so strong that I said no to that one. I mean, the influence of everybody around me doing that habit, boy, that was really hard. Because they don't think that habit is too hard for them. And then I just started with a little, and before I know it, I am back on the train. Willpower is not enough to break the habit. This is what we need to do to break the habit. We have got to make the habit difficult to do. You have got to make your habit difficult to be a part of. Proverbs 4:14-15 says this: "Do not set foot on the path of the wicked or walk away from the evildoers. Avoid it. Do not travel on it. Turn from it. Go away from it." You can't just be a part of it and will it away. It's not going to happen. You have to make that habit that is destroying you hard to do. So last week we talked about this habit loop. Remember this habit loop? There it is. Oh, that was actually good. We talked about a trigger. There is typically something in your life that triggers the habit that you want to do. We talked about it in context last week to good habits. If we want to read before we go to bed, then we put the book on our pillow that morning so that when we go to bed, it triggers us to do what we want to do. So we set a trigger that leads to an action that then brings the reward. But if we want to break it, then we've got to break the trigger and break the action in order to get the reward of removing that from us. There are a few triggers in your life that cause you to do the same habit over and over. And willpower is not going to fix it. You have to figure out what trigger in your life triggers you to do that specific habit and how you're going to break out of it. Here are a few of those major triggers: place, time, mood, moment, and people. These things are they're triggers in our lives. We talk about, let's talk about place and time together. Let's just lump those two together. Usually there is a place and a time that you indulge and you do the habit that you want to break, right? Typically, let's say there's also a place and a time that you don't do the habit that you want to break. Like, you typically don't overeat at the gym. But if you go to Cece's Pizza, you're going to overeat. Do you understand what I'm saying? There is a place and there is a time that cause triggers that make you do what you do and don't want to do. You usually don't look at inappropriate images when there is somebody else around that can see the screen that you are scrolling on. But when you are alone and you are in private, you tend to do these things. There is a trigger and a time or a place that calls you to do the habits that you don't want to do. So if there's a time or a place that triggers you, you need to remove that trigger. Remove what it is that causes you to be a part of that habit. Our mood is a trigger. There are certain moods that make us vulnerable to partake in unhealthy habits. Like when you're hungry or when you're angry, or put them together and you're hangry, right? Those moods cause us to do things that we don't want to do. Maybe the mood is when you feel lonely, you always go to that habit. Maybe it's when you're tired, you always go to that habit. We need to be aware of the vulnerability to our habit when we feel a certain way. And so when we feel a certain way, we need to identify, I feel this way, and it typically leads me to do this habit that I don't want to do anymore. That's the mood that I'm in. Maybe it's a moment that triggers us. Maybe you pass a test or you complete a project at work, and that calls for a moment of celebration. So you participate in your habit because you did it. But in the same way you don't meet the deadline or you fail, you use the same habit to commiserate the habit that you use to celebrate because it's your go-to. Identify the moments that make you triggered. Last is this, people. There are people in our lives that promote habits that we're trying to avoid. There are certain people in our lives that participate in habits that we want to remove from who we are. The wrong people can lead us in the wrong direction the same way the right people can lead us in the right direction. I'm going to say it one more time. You can write it down. The wrong people lead us in the wrong direction the same way the right people lead us in the right direction. You typically take on the habits of the people that you hang around. So maybe it's time for us to evaluate who it is that we hang around and spend the most of our time with. Proverbs 13:20 says, walk with the wise, become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm. What are the habits of the people that you spend the most time with? Are they the habits that will make you who you want to be? Are they the habits that will make you who God is calling you to be? I'm not saying that it's going to be easy. This of the 5 is probably the hardest thing to do because you've established relationship with these people, and it's going to take a difficult conversation or a moment of crisis for you to be able to say, I love you so much, but I can't be around this habit because it's destroying me. And so I need to separate myself. 1 Corinthians 15:33 says, do not be misled. Bad company corrupts good character. That's in the Bible. That's not just what grandma used to say. That's the understanding of who we are. Some of us need to lose the people in our lives in order to free ourselves from the habits that are destroying us. To break an unhealthy habit, we've got to remove the trigger. We've got to interrupt the action. So how do we interrupt the action? Look, let's say you don't want to oversleep anymore. That's your habit. You're just terrible at getting up in the morning. Oversleeping is your thing. You got to take the alarm and you got to move it across the room so you get out of your nice, warm, cozy bed and get up and go break the action, right? Get up, go turn it off. Do something that will break this action of where you're at. Let's say that overspending is your habit. You just can't help it because Amazon is just so convenient. I loved all those posts at the first day of the year that said, I haven't ordered anything from Amazon yet. Like that was true, right? For some people, they were like, I made it 24 hours without spending something on Amazon. Listen, if overspending is your habit, then add a trusted friend to that little part where it sends the confirmation email to. So that every time you click the button, they get an email about what it is that you have purchased. Break the action. Let's say you struggle with social media. One of the easiest things that we can do if we struggle with social media is to move the phone away from the bed so it's not the first thing you see in the morning or the last thing that you see before night. That in itself would be the smallest domino, but the best domino that a lot of us could start. It would free us up to become who we have been created to be, because that one right there is really affecting the majority of our society in this moment. Just move it. Just get it away. Find that same trusted friend and share your screen time usage that week with them. These are the apps that I've been on. I'll show you mine. Maybe we can become accountability partners with one another to be able to break this action step. Because once we get things out of secret and we put them out into the open, that's when we begin to break this cycle of action. So what daily habits are leading to who you want to become? Are your daily habits, are there some habits that you need to start? Are there some habits that you need to break? Are the habits in your life leading to the day when you will say, how did I get here? It was just one small choice. It was just a little bit of fun. It was just one small habit. How did I lose my job? How did I destroy my family? How did I ruin that relationship with my kids that I just can't seem to get back? How did my health get in this condition? Because one small step after another small step in the direction that you don't want to go, you continue to take every single day. That's how you get there. Samson took a step after a step after a step in the wrong direction for 25 miles. Do you realize with every single step that he took, he could have altered the course? Okay. 25 steps in this direction. I don't believe that Samson needed to make a complete 180 to change his life. I think that as he was taking steps in this direction, one after another, by participating in that habit, if he would have just altered the course and gone this way, it could have started a journey that would have changed his life forever. So I'm not telling you this morning that you need to do a complete 180 and you need to change every habit that's in your life. But I'm telling you, if you don't want to go to that place that this destructive habit is taking you, you need to alter the course of where you're at. You need to find one small habit that will change the course of direction that you're going. And instead of continuing to go in a direction that will lead to death and destruction, there is a direction that will lead to life, happiness, love, peace, joy, all the things that you're probably going in that direction to find and will not find it. It's in this other direction. But if you just alter the course a little bit, probably somebody in this place, probably a pastor, probably a loved one, probably a small group leader is going to be able to say, hey, I see that you altered that step in your life. I'm going to put my arm around you and I'm going to help you keep making the turn. One step after another step, after another step, after a domino, after a domino, after a domino, until we get in this right direction and we begin to change the trajectory of our life forever. Maybe it's a habit you need to start. But I am not too naive to believe that there are not some of us in this place that have habits that we need to break in order to become who God wants us to be. I'm going to ask you to stand with me this morning. In the most incredible act of faith that you could probably do, and one of the most incredible acts of faith that you have done in a long time, I am going to give you opportunity to take a step in the right direction this morning. I'm going to give you an opportunity to say, this is the first step in changing the trajectory of where I have been going, because I want to eliminate a habit in my life. If you want to eliminate a habit in your life that will make you look more like Christ, as Brent and his team sings, I invite you to take a step in the right direction, towards the front, towards the Father, to say, God, I am turning my life around. I'm taking a step in where you want me to go. But in the same way, if you have been on this journey for a long time and maybe you don't have a number of habits in your life that are leading to destruction, but you have just been kind of wandering without direction, you have been wandering without an opportunity to experience the peace and the love and the joy that the Father has for you, and there is a habit, a spiritual discipline that you need to start right now that will get you on that track, in the same way, you can take that step in the right direction to say to God, I'm taking a step towards you to begin a habit that says, I want to be all that you want me to become. Start a habit, stop a habit, simply get unstuck and move in the right direction. Would you be willing, would you be bold enough to take simply a step forward this morning, a step of surrender? I want to be who you want me to be. Brent, will you lead us this morning?